My name's James, I'm a channel account manager at SonicWall. To my left is Dion. Dion's a solutions engineer as well at SonicWall. And today we're going to be talking to you around the education space, specifically for education organisations. So touching on kind of industry threats as a whole, and then breaking it down a little bit further into kind of education stats from our mid-year threat report, so stuff that's really, really relevant in the last 6 months. And also touching on standards like KCSiE, Department for Education stats, and how we as an organisation protect those types of organisations with the SonicWall protection, and also touching on Fastvue, which is a third-party integration into our products. But first and foremost, let's start with the overall piece. So this displays cybersecurity to cybercrime. As you can see, cybercrime is a massive industry. I think it's about $8.5 trillion industry at the moment. Makes it the third largest economy in the world, behind China and the United States. Obviously, these guys are all about greed, disruption, earnings. They're not these teenagers that have hoods over them, trying to hack into websites and networks now. These are incredibly sophisticated organizations. They've got HR departments, payroll departments on the dark web, incredibly sophisticated outfits. You can even buy things like malware as a service. So if you were to ask them to put an attack on a specific end user, specific customer, they'd give you SLAs, timescales, stamps, and give you updates as the process is going. And to the left there, cybersecurity. Obviously, we're a small aspect of this, but we're here to obviously help you guys as organisations make sure that your networks are secured, you're protected against threats, and you can go about your day-to-day as easily as you can. So these statistics are pulled from our mid-year threat report. So SonicWall's mid-year threat report was released a couple of months ago now. Essentially, it showed the threat landscape over the first 6 months of this year. So it's all really, really relevant information. I'll definitely encourage you guys to download it. There's a QR code at the front, or you can go onto sonicwall.com/threat report. So essentially, this is for education specifically, and these are European stats, which obviously include the UK. So there's a 179 increase in attacks from the first 6 months of this year compared to the first 6 months of last year. But what's interesting and kind of what's quite alarming is the increase in encrypted attacks. So up 2,500%. Encrypted, web traffic sounds, very secure. It's encrypted, but actually it's an easy route in for attackers to infiltrate your organization. So, if anything goes over the encrypted web traffic, which makes up about 90% of web traffic these days, you need to inspect it, you need to unpacket it, certificate it, and then pass it on its way. If you're not inspecting it and you aren't doing that, obviously there's a big hole in your security. We offer that in terms of DPI SSL. It's a feature that's available on all of our firewalls. You may know it as TLS decryption. It's pretty much exactly the same thing. I'll now run you through quickly the SonicWall piece. So this is the security and the technology behind all of our solutions. Essentially, we've got a big database of known information. This is what our mid-year threat report is pulled from. So all of our devices all across the world is pinging back information, and we're able to collate it and produce the mid-year threat report. In that database, there's trillions and trillions of lines of known code. If something comes onto your network and you're utilizing a SonicWall firewall and we know about it, we can block it. It's really straightforward, it's signature-based. Every other firewall vendor and security vendor is doing that piece, and that makes up 99% of what we block. But that 1%, I know it doesn't sound a lot, but one attack, one infiltration into your network with a ransomware attack is all it takes to cause disruption, right? So understanding that those zero-day threats and the unknown threats is really, really important for your organization. And we do that with Capture ATP and something that's totally patented to SonicWall called real-time deep memory inspection. Our Capture ATP includes a multi-engine sandbox. Sandboxing technologies, aren't a new thing. Lots of vendors have them, but by having a 3-tiered sandbox gives us an all-encompassing view and a scan as to whether it's an unknown threat and a zero-day threat. And running in tandem to that is real-time deep memory inspection. Again, totally patented to SonicWall, does exactly what it says on the tin, right? Looks in memory at the code to understand if there's any code written there to avoid technologies like sandboxing. So we're giving that view in alongside the ATP piece. The RTDMI, again, totally patented to SonicWall, catches 1,200 instances of never before seen malware a day, which equates to around 450,000 over the course of a year. All of those are then fed back into our Capture Labs database, and within 24 hours, every SonicWall device globally will have a signature match against them. So what you're buying with a SonicWall isn't something that's static and it's just updating based on your updates. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and constantly changing to protect your organization. And all of that can be viewed through our single pane of glass, great word, console, single sign-on, cloud portal, and you can drill down into the specifics, understand how it's got stopped, why it was stopped, etc. So that's kind of the security piece with SonicWall. So, in this instance, we're talking about the firewall. This is everything that's protecting you from that instance. So drilling down a little bit into kind of specifics around education, that's kind of why you guys are here today. We hear of attacks on educational organizations all the time, right? Down the left-hand side are just a few examples, where schools have been delayed starting term because of a cyber attack, a ransomware attack threatening half a million pound ransom, sophisticated attacks that are on these schools. You need to have sufficient protection to make sure you're protected. Again, these are all pulled from gov.uk, and as you can see, breaches and attacks in the last 12 months, the higher up the stack of education you get, the more targeted you are. So for education, for colleges, 92% of colleges saw an attack in the last 12 months. So you pretty much got a 100% rate if you're a college that you're going to see some kind of attack. Even primary schools, 41% of primary schools saw an attack in the last 12 months. Again, that's pretty alarming. And I suppose this is why you guys are here today. You're seeking guidance, you're trying to protect your networks, making sure not only are the networks and the data secure, but you're also doing your bit for safeguarding of your students, making sure they're not accessing certain pieces that's going to be detrimental to them. And that leads me on to our next point. So it's all around KCSiE, and obviously the specific changes that the 2023 KCSiE standards came out, demanded, I suppose. So again, this is all around the safeguarding of students. KCSiE stands for Keeping Children Safe in Education. If you haven't heard of it before, they release a new set of guidelines and standards every year. They tweak it slightly depending on what they see fit for the education market. And this year it was all around filtering and monitoring. Again, these came out on the 1st of September, so they've been out for a month or so now. We've worked with a number of different education organisations over the past 3-4 months, making sure that they're compliant, meeting these standards, and again they link into the Department for Education standards that were released this year too. So making sure your children are safe, they're not accessing material that they shouldn't be accessing is really, really important. And the way we do that is a third-party integration. So Fastvue are a relatively small organisation, but they're a really global company. They support around 400 schools in the UK, around 1,200 globally. And essentially it's a third-party integration into our firewall. So the logs from the firewall will get pulled into this tool, and from that tool you've got reporting, you've got monitoring, analytics, and alerting, which is probably the main piece to talk around. So like I said, clear and concise reports. It increases your safeguarding for your students. So for example, if little Johnny types in something he shouldn't, whether it's suicide, self-harm, if he's trying to access pornographic material, you want to know about it there and then. You don't want the report to be pulled at the end of the day saying 8 a.m, so-and-so tried to access this. If they're typing it and they're looking at it or trying to access it, you want to be able to action it there and then. So Fastvue gives you real-time reporting on keywords and also categories. The categories are pulled from the SonicWall. I think we've got 64 at the moment, and that's increasing to 88 with our 7.1 release, which is due imminently. With this, along with the SonicWall firewall, so you get all your reporting and your security with the SonicWall firewall, you're compliant with the safeguarding regulations. And obviously this all links back to your Ofsted reports, your Ofsted scores. you need to be able to prove that you're doing something in regards to making sure your students are safe.
Sorry mate, does it work on iPads as well?
All sorts of traffic that are passing the firewall, we can pick up the information from. So essentially the logs from the iPads, for example, will pass through the firewall. That will then be passed on to the Fastvue solution, and that will be applied to the reports and the alerts that are set up in there. So yeah, we can.
Cool. Dion's going to come on after this slide actually and just talk around the specific reporting and the dashboards that you'll see with the Fastvue piece. But just to kind of summarise the Fastvue bit, you can have your reporting. Obviously, you've got board of directors, you've got stakeholders within your schools that are going to want to see reports. Take an instance, for example, they might be interested in understanding internet traffic or search history of a specific student. With the Fastvue tool, you'll be able to search that specific user, pull that information between X time period and send it on. It literally takes 2-3 minutes to do. Saves you a lot of time, man hours, and effort in doing so. And you're safeguarding your students massively by this. So with that, that's quite quick and brief, but I'll hand over to Dion. You can talk around the Fastvue piece.
So what does it all actually look like? So this is the Fastvue solution. As you'd expect with a sort of reporting and alerting solution, it's going to give you that overview of your actual firewall instance itself anyway. So this is what we're looking at the moment. So you can see from the dashboard over a sort of 24-hour period, what your bandwidth utilization is like, how your actual appliance is coping with that bandwidth, and it will highlight any sort of shortcomings, so you can size your box appropriately. As I'm sure you're all aware, your firewall needs to be of a certain size to deal with a certain amount of users or students, for example. So this is going to give you that information at a high level, and as I say, over a 24-hour period. We can also get a view on bandwidth usage, how much bandwidth going across the firewall is actually being used, what sort of categories are being hit from a content filtering perspective, what the top sites, the top users that are using up this bandwidth. This sort of information gives you the opportunity to then start tuning your rules. So if you're seeing, for example, a lot of YouTube traffic or unproductive traffic, you can start to add rules that will throttle that back. So you can, all your sort of business critical applications aren't starved of bandwidth on a day-to-day basis. I mentioned productivity and acceptable sort of usage, if you like. Based on the content filtering categories that we're seeing hit, we can build a picture of how the network's being utilised. So is it being utilised correctly? Are these, productive websites that people are actually accessing? Or is it unacceptable? Is it against acceptable usage policy? That sort of thing. So again, it gives you the information you need to start tuning those rule sets to push people in the direction of actual productive website usage. So more information around the firewall itself. So obviously firewalls, it's there from a security perspective. So as James has already mentioned, all those threats, etc., that we're picking up, you need to see what's actually hitting your firewall, and is somebody actually trying to access your network? Maybe you're seeing downloaded malware, that sort of thing. So you can get reports based around that as well. If you've got remote users that are using SSL VPN, for example, it's good to see, when people are actually logging on, again, what their usage characterizations are like, build a profile of exactly, again, how the network's being used by not only your users on site, but your remote users as well. There we go. So from a reporting perspective, and as James mentioned, we're KCSiE compliant, so keeping children safe in education is a big thing for Fastvue, and it's one of the only solutions that comes pre-configured with reports, framework reports that you can use on a day-to-day basis. And as James mentioned earlier, we can have these sent out on a schedule, so you can set it up so that these pre-canned reports go out to the higher up, so they can see at a high level actually we're looking good, or maybe we're not. We're seeing a lot of access to a certain category of website, which may play into KCSiE. The KCSiE framework from a negative perspective, and you can start to action that. What you can also do is you can sort of build your own query reports. So if there's a specific student or a specific category or keyword that you want to search based on, you can do that quite quickly and easily. The user interface is really, really sort of straightforward to use. It's all based on logic, so and, ors, and operators, that sort of thing. So quite intuitive to use, and quick and easy to generate the reports you need. We can also do alerts, so we can flag based on keywords. So if we're looking at things like alcohol, radicalisation, weapons, that sort of thing, you can actually get those alerts instantly, so you can start to take action against the particular person or user that's trying to search those keywords out. and take the required action. Again, these can be either report-based or instant alerts, because like James said earlier, there's no point in hearing about it after the fact, right? You need to act pretty quickly in those sort of situations. So, as you mentioned as well, we've got 64 sort of content filtering categories. So everything you can imagine is covered there with the content filtering side of things. Then on the syslog side of things, that pulls back your sort of more networky focused information, we can also set up the login for that to pull back the information you need. And again, there's reports, there's a lot of pre-canned reports, but as I mentioned, you've also got the ability to create your own reporting structures if you need to. And then you can create those so that they're on demand or scheduled. It's pretty much the same thing. This is kind of what the alerts look like. So you've got information around the sort of more security aspects. So is there malware being detected? What was the browser that was used? What was the timestamp against it? You can then sort of drill down into each one of these and get the actual details to see actually which was the user that came across this piece of malware, what was the endpoint, that sort of thing. So again, you've got all the information you need to be able to go around and clean up and make sure that that endpoint is actually secure. Again, as I mentioned, you've got scheduling, so you can do ad hoc reporting. So if there's a specific, maybe you've been alerted to a student that's potentially you need to pay attention to, maybe there's a safeguarding issue around them, you can actually just drill into their sort of data characteristics and say, right, okay, this is what they've been accessing over the last 24 hours, 7 days, generate that report and give it to the people that need to see it so you can carry out the safeguarding steps as needed.